Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the rulers of Persia, from Diocles to Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. I am Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 95, Muawiyah the First, also known as Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, where we transition out of the Rashidun Caliphate, which ended with Ali last time, and we move into a new thing, which is the Umayyad Caliphate. So we get to figure out how the world is changed by this new type of government. Who is going on? Who are the Umayyads? Will they be good for the Caliphate, or will they be a mess?
Who is going on?
Only one way to find out. Yes, correct. Who is going on? Who's on first? So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Sariel, it's been a while since we recorded last episode.
Exactly.
How much do you remember what happened during Ali's reign?
This is the only problem about actually recording things ahead, that now it's been a little while.
Yes.
And I know it was an eventful episode. I know we recorded for a long time and a lot of things happened. I remember a little bit that it was the successor, it was Ali, and it was the successor to our first chosen kin, so to speak. Like the previous, like we've had to decide who was going to succeed Muhammad.
Yeah.
And that was like a whole thing, and we had the previous king, and then the last episode we had Ali, who also was like a contestant or a contestant to have been that first choice. And so we had the politics of like, he wasn't chosen on the first go around and now he was, and how did he compare to the previous ruler? And
that's right.
Yeah,
there was a whole mess with the succession of Ali, and the main crux of his rule essentially was how legitimate is he, and does he deserve to be caliph?
Right. And
he was chosen, but he was chosen in the aftermath of the death of of the murder of Uthman.
Yes.
And he had to sort of balance trying to maintain the state together while also being religiously correct, and it was a whole mess, and ultimately that ended up with him getting murdered himself.
Again, and the question of his legitimacy also created like a schism in the very young, still Muslim faith.
Yes,
right?
So essentially, the question of legitimacy breaks Islam into two main branches, which are Sunni and Shia Islam, where essentially it's no longer one unified community. It is the community that recognizes all the previous caliphs as legitimate and says, no, all of them are part of it, and actually traditions outside the Quran are important and relevant for religion. Others instead say, the Shias, which are the party of Ali, the Shiat Ali, they say that, well, Ali was always meant to be the first caliph, and he was meant to succeed, so everybody else is illegitimate, and the only thing we should look at is the Quran, because it is literally the word of God, and nothing outside of it has the same sort of legitimacy that we can ascribe to it.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, they've ultimately lost, because, as we saw, Ali kept losing more and more power throughout the caliphate. He tried to fight Muawiyah and win this civil war within the caliphate, this first fitna, but ultimately he was defeated, and he wasn't so much defeated as he didn't manage to win a decisive victory, and that withered away his support, and eventually he was murdered. And then, crucially, what we saw last time is that he decided not to officially endorse his son as the next caliph. He decided to leave it up to his followers if, in their conscience they thought it was the right thing to do, but he didn't say, no, my son should be the next caliph.
Yeah. But that was also an odd decision, because he's essentially also leaving the succession open with all of the uncertainty that creates or that involves. Which,
So that's messy. Also, his children are the grandchildren of the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
So the only male descendants of the Prophet, which would have been an important source of legitimacy and is an important source of legitimacy from the Shia point of view. But other people might say, well, if Ali didn't manage to hold on to the caliphate, well, Muawiyah was now proclaimed caliph, so surely he is the one that's most legitimate. So we'll get to see how he handles the world and if he'll do a good job as caliph. Cyril, before getting into Muawiyah, do you think he's going to do a good job? Because he has made himself caliph as the champion of the Caliph Uthman. He is the leader of the Umayyad family, and he has now essentially defeated Ali in this sort of ideological conflict, if not militarily.
It sounds like he really wants it, which is a good, not that other rulers that we've had didn't want it, but in the sense of not just I want to be king, but in the sense of I have been preparing for this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Politically,
Yeah.
Then again, best rulers are rulers that don't really want the position. So, but what I mean is he probably, I don't know, does he know what he's doing?
He's been governing Syria and Palestine for, mostly Syria, Palestine occasionally, but he's been governing Syria since it was conquered. He helped conquer it, and he's been governing it well.
Yeah, all right.
For the past decade or so.
So that should be good. The problem with Ali was that he couldn't stay true to his own brand, kind of. I feel like Ali would have had a very different reign if he had been the first one chosen after Muhammad. And the fact that he wasn't, really created a huge issue within, the community regarding his legitimacy, but also within, his way of ruling, where he was like, well, I said I would do this, but now the other person did this, so I need to differentiate myself. Or the other person did this, and that was welcomed well, so I should also, it was this comparison.
Yeah, exactly. He has to essentially live up to something else and be, while he was one of the closest collaborators of Muhammad, now he has these other caliphs whose legacy he has to contend with. And, well, that was part of the crucial problem, essentially.
So I feel like this new candidate to caliph is removed from that. As long as he can remain legitimate, right? Because again, for example, the fact that Ali's grandchildren are literally descendants of... No, children are the grandchildren of the Prophet is a pretty big legitimacy card to pull.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, I don't know, I guess we'll have to see with the situation. I have a good feeling, but also I have a feeling that it's going to be very tumultuous, because I don't think you're at the beginning of something is either really chill or not chill at all. And so far, it's been a huge mess, from the get-go. So I feel like that might continue, actually. But hopefully with a bit more success than the two predecessors. Because they were both murdered a few years in, so...
Yeah. Will we get a natural death? Who knows? Let's find out.
That'd be good.
Yeah, every caliph except Abu Bakr has been murdered so far. So hopefully this one will survive. We'll see how that goes. Okay, very well. So let's begin with Muawiyah's life. Who is he? Where does he come from? Where does he go? So we start with Muawiyah's life with a mystery on his birth year, because different traditions say he was born either 5, 7, or 13 years before Muhammad became the prophet in 610. So we can broadly say that he was born sometime in the first decade of the 7th century, as a general rule of thumb, which would make him about one generation after the prophet himself. So he's the same age about as Ali.
Okay, yeah.
His father was a leading figure in Mecca and was the leader of his clan of the Umayyads. And crucially and problematically enough for Muawiyah later, his father, Abi Sufyan, was leading the Meccan forces against Muhammad after he fled to Medina. So in the early days, after the Hijrah, Muhammad fled to Medina for safety and there tried to fight back and win back Mecca. Well, Muawiyah's dad was the one leading these forces against Muhammad at the time, which, as you can imagine, for a guy who's going to become caliph, not a great look. But, hey. After a failed siege of Mecca, Muawiyah's sister was eventually married to Muhammad, and when Muhammad himself finally entered Mecca, his father and most of the family converted to Islam at last.
Okay.
But what about Muawiyah himself? What about his religious faith? Well, it depends on the traditions, really, because it looks like Muawiyah only became openly Muslim at the same time, so when Muhammad entered Mecca victorious after defeating them in battle. But there are certain sources, which are friendly to Muawiyah, that say that no, Muawiyah was Muslim before that, but he just couldn't be that publicly because his father was leading the anti-Muslim forces, so ultimately had to hide it, and he was fine.
That's not great. But okay. We love a story of, like, a rebel in their own family, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you can see this in different ways, because this late conversion would later be used against Muawiyah, since he officially became a Muslim only when it was clear that Muhammad had won.
Yeah.
So,
when it
he
was
wasn't
cool.
a Muslim like like Ali and Uthman, who, they were Muslims when it was difficult.
Yeah.
Muawiyah became a Muslim when it was convenient to become a Muslim.
I see.
So, did he really believe? Did he not? The accusation could be thrown at him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why there's the tradition that actually he was secretly a Muslim, so he was actually doing, the right thing, but he only came out publicly as a Muslim later on. But yeah, eventually when Muawiyah becomes a Muslim, he is taken into Muhammad's personal entourage. And since Muawiyah was a literate man, and he was apparently only one of 17 of the Quraysh who were literate at the time, he was employed by the Prophet as one of his scribes.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was, speaking the Quran into being, or not speaking it into being, but, speaking it from the mind of God, he was the one writing it down, or just writing down sayings or precepts of the Prophet. So, he is close. Despite converting late, he is sort of close to the foundations of the religion itself.
Yeah. I mean, like, everyone so far, they've been literally alive when the Prophet was there. It hasn't been that many years. So, of course, they're all close to the foundations.
Everybody we've covered has personally met him.
It literally just happened.
Yes. So then we have that, as we've seen twice before, the Prophet eventually dies and was succeeded by Abu Bakr. And in 634, he made a crucial change to Muawiyah's destiny. Because the young man, now in his 30s, thereabouts, give or take a decade, he was sent to Syria as the leader of the vanguard of the army that was to take that region from the Romans and was under the command of Muawiyah's brother. So Muawiyah is being sent as a lieutenant. In this role, Muawiyah managed to witness the great opening victories of the Muslim armies and was present at the capture of Jerusalem in 637. But most crucially, he was leading about 3,000 soldiers at the Battle of Yarmouk, which was the great battle that crushed the last surviving Roman army and allowed for the forces of the Caliphate to just stream through Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and conquer all these regions for the new state. So he's getting some military experience. He's leading, smaller contingents. He's not in charge of the army or anything. That's his brother mostly, but he's doing
some
well.
Experience. Yeah.
And then something unexpected happens because Muawiyah's brother, 2 years after this expedition, died of the plague.
Oh, damn.
So what's going to happen to Muawiyah? Because the caliph at this point was Umar. But apparently Umar was impressed enough with Muawiyah's performance during the war that he decided that, Muawiyah was there, he was a member of the family anyway, he was doing a good job, he can command the Western army, and he is in charge of conquest in that direction. He can do a great job, it'll be great, it'll be brilliant. It's also likely that Muawiyah had been appointed as a deputy by his brother when he was sick, and the situation was volatile enough that Umar confirmed the appointment.
I see.
Because this is a bit unusual by Umar, because he was an extremely pious man, and he usually appointed only early and loyal converts to Islam. And so it's sort of strange that he didn't pick someone else to lead this role, but probably would have been a much larger mess to just replace Muawiyah, so he was doing a good enough job. Why not? He can stay. It's a little bit unclear at this moment how much power Muawiyah exactly had at this point and how much he actually controlled, but things become slightly clearer under the reign of Uthman, when he is made the governor of Syria, centered in the city of Damascus. Damascus, which will be extremely important. We need to remember Damascus. It's relevant for the future.
Okay.
But one of the advantages here is that, Uthman, the new caliph, is a relative of Muawiyah. He is part of the same Umayyad clan, and so they're related to each other. Uthman seems to, as we saw, one of the greater criticisms that were placed against him were that he was a bit too favorable to his own family.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a great advantage for Muawiyah, who gets to consolidate his position in Syria. He helped conquer it, and now he can just run it as the governor, which is pretty convenient. He's also, however, unique in his role as a very long-lasted governor, since Umar often shifted governors to avoid them gaining a personal power base.
Mm-hmm. Smart.
But he died before shifting Muawiyah, and Uthman, was his distant cousin, so thought that it would be useful to keep him there. So he is the only Umayyad who is a governor before the reign of Uthman. So that gives him extra legitimacy points because, well, he was chosen based on his merit, not just because he's a relative of Uthman. He has been doing a good job.
Mm-hmm. Is that so, or does it just look like that?
It seems like he was actually just genuinely competent and kept in that role.
Yeah.
So, the fact that his cousin is the caliph helps, surely.
Sure, yeah.
But, in general, he was appointed by the previous caliph, who was known as being a respected man.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the opposite. It's like, it does confirm
merit,
that he was chosen by merit. Yeah.
But speaking of his conquests in the West, Muawiyah didn't really expand the caliphate very much himself, which sort of contrasts with the contemporary conquests in Iran. But this is likely because while the Romans still maintained the fortified lines that had held back Khosrow II, and they held on to their capital, so, Constantinople is safe across the sea, and also, again, Khosrow hadn't managed to penetrate that far into Anatolia. He had sort of stopped there. There was a good fortified border, and that's where a stalemate formed.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, in Iran, the Sassanids had lost their own capital, and they didn't have a strong king or a clear border to fall back on, so, the Sassanid Empire just collapsed and folded in on itself. So that's why Muawiyah is sort of more consolidating rather than expanding further on.
Mm-hmm. Good to see someone consolidating something for once.
Yeah, it's important. And in his role as governor, Muawiyah did a very good job of fortifying this border with the Romans. And he decided that since the Romans had the strongest fleet in the Mediterranean, it would do well for the caliphate to have their own fleet. I mean, they were a desert people all this time. It's probably helpful to have a fleet so the Romans can't just come raiding our
time to
settlements.
expand.
That would be a pain. So he's the first one to set up a fleet for the caliphate in the name of the Caliph Uthman. And as we mentioned 2 episodes ago, the story goes that Uthman allowed for this fleet to be built as long as Muawiyah's wife traveled on the ships with him, presumably to make sure that he took no unnecessary risks and that everything would be up to code, let's say. But so now Muawiyah has this new fleet as governor of Syria, and with it, he manages to attack a bunch of different areas. He attacks Cyprus, he leads some raid on Sicily and Rhodes, so he's managing to just travel around the Mediterranean, either conquering regions for the empire, as is the case for Cyprus, or running some more general raids in Sicily and Rhodes. The interesting thing about Cyprus is that to avoid being attacked by people, they just decide to be like half in the Roman Empire and half in the Caliphate, and they were just like, we'll pay taxes to both of you, just please leave. This is fine.
I guess, because I'm like, how is that good for them? But it's not, it's just, that's the safest option, I guess.
We're going to be invaded anyway, we might as well just be chill. But Muawiyah's crowning achievement for the navy was his defeat of a much stronger Roman fleet under the Emperor Constans II, who was wounded in battle at the Battle of the Masts. This battle was extremely important because it deprived the Romans of a chance to retake Egypt and broke their control of the Mediterranean. So they're no longer just freely roaming. You actually have the Caliphate fleet being able to expand and, consolidate their control over the coast of the Levant and the Eastern Mediterranean. Some Christian sources also mention that this resulted in an unsuccessful siege of Constantinople, but Muslim sources don't mention this at all, so things are a bit unclear.
I see.
But also, maybe since this battle was only a year before the conflict around Ali's caliphate broke out, it's possible that there were preparations for a siege, as we saw with the attacks on Sicily, Rhodes, and Cyprus. But ultimately, when the situation at home became more volatile, Muawiyah diverted resources inwards to make sure that, the whole Ali situation was dealt with properly.
Yep.
Also, great news, Serial. Muawiyah was the commander who subjugated our old friend Armenia into the Caliphate.
Oh
So
my God.
Armenia's back. Hooray!
No!
I'm sure this will cause no issues whatsoever.
I was happy to have it gone.
No, Serial. Armenia's here to stay.
Will we ever not? It's fine. It's okay.
I don't think we ever will. Armenia's
It's
still...
just like Egypt at the beginning of our empire. Just, okay.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. But fortunately for Armenia, it looks like it was a very lenient subjugation, which allowed an Armenian noble to rule the region with limited taxes levied, and only the requirement to help in case the Romans attacked. So it's basically saying, you can continue doing your own thing, just if the Romans are invading, you have to send us some soldiers, and if we need taxes, occasionally send them over, but honestly, our empire is so large that we don't really need them right now. So it's fine, it's good. Muawiyah also had the advantage that the soldiers he had were all very cohesive. Because the soldiers sent to fight on the Roman front, as opposed to the Iranian one, were mostly from cohesive Arab clans. So there were clans that had ties before the conquest, and they were all tied together. They had family connections. They liked each other, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to the clans that are sort of gathering in the east, the ones around Kufa, as Ali found last time, this city close to what used to be Ctesiphon, which are slightly more divided. They have more internal trouble, so they're going to just argue among each other a lot. And as we saw with Ali last time, that causes splits and schisms, and it's a whole mess. So Muawiyah has this fortune here.
Mm-hmm.
But as we saw during Uthman's episode, when things start to get bad, firstly, there were no Syrians among the attackers of Uthman. So, the main people who attacked Uthman at the time were the Egyptians and the people of Kufa and Basra occasionally. So it was, the Iraqis and the Egyptians that were opposing the caliph. So the Syrians are in his favor.
All right.
But secondly, Muawiyah was the one who, when things got bad, suggested to Uthman that he should just send his army to Medina and use that army to sort of suppress the revolts and protect the caliph. Something that Uthman ultimately refused because he thought, oh no, this is going to cause a civil war. I'd rather not do this. And again, this was before any civil wars had broken out, so there was still hope that everything would be fine.
Right.
When the news eventually came over that Uthman was besieged in his home, Muawiyah sent an army anyway against his orders. But ultimately, they were too late to save the caliph's life, so it didn't end up well. So, this is the life of Muawiyah under the first three caliphs. But
Right.
what happens under Ali is the more crucial part. It's what we saw last time, and it is quite significant. It is the main tragedy that we saw. During the Caliphate of Ali, in the first part of it, it looks like Muawiyah simply bided his time while Ali dealt with a rebellion of Aisha, the wife of Muhammad, and several of Muhammad's companions. So this was the early part of the first fitna. However, eventually Ali made it clear that he wanted to replace Muawiyah and all the other Umayyad governors. And at the same time, Ali was aware that Muawiyah had avoided giving his allegiance to Ali. He basically said, oh, yeah.
I see. Yeah, I'll sign the
And it's
things
like-
tomorrow, or whenever I get the chance.
Yeah, exactly. So no, you're totally caliph. Yeah, I'm sure. I'll just tell other people in public at some point eventually. No, don't worry. It's fine, my guy.
Definitely.
So then we reach the events of last episode, with Muawiyah painting himself as the avenger of Uthman, because he is the head of the Umayyad family. Ali has refused to hand over the assassins of Uthman. Muawiyah says, no, as his cousin, as his relative, I'm going to avenge him. The Quran says that I should be able to avenge him, so we need to figure this out. I need to avenge his honor. This resulted in the Battle of Siffin in 657, which resulted in an arbitration committee being gathered. So if you remember that, it's when Muawiyah had his soldiers put verses of the Quran on their spears so that they wouldn't be attacked.
Yep.
And deciding eventually, no, we should just have a discussion about this. Let's be civil. Let's not have this massive civil war. Let's be rational. It'll be fine. Muawiyah chose as his representative the man who had conquered Egypt and governed it until he had been dismissed by Uthman, and had lived in retirement in Syria for the last few years, while Ali had his hand forced in choosing the former governor of Kufa that had opposed the war against Muawiyah, which of course stacked the deck in our man's favor, because he has his own representative and a guy that didn't want to fight him.
Yep.
So, that's a pretty good arbitration deal we have.
Yep.
As we saw last time, the arbitration resulted in nothing of substance, except that Muawiyah became a viable candidate for the caliphate. If you remember last time, the two committee members ended up saying, okay, we'll both depose our respective sides and we can decide who the caliph is. And what happened was that Ali's representative went first and said, I depose Ali as caliph.
Yeah.
And then Muawiyah's representative came over and said, well, if he's deposed, I propose Muawiyah as caliph.
Yeah, I remember this. That was such a move, but so clever too.
Yeah, exactly. So, there we go. In the meantime, with all this mounting, no decisive battle has been won. Ali is sort of retreated to Kufa, waiting for arbitration to happen. He is dealing with infighting in his own ranks. It's a mess. It's very complicated. So more and more territories in the caliphate pass over to Muawiyah's side, especially Egypt, where Muawiyah's arbitrator had managed to regain power. So Ali's support is limiting itself to a smaller and smaller circle directly around Kufa, the city where he is, while everybody's starting to just send letters to Muawiyah saying, no, we recognize you. You're the legitimate caliph. You're the one.
At this point, you want to move fast. If everyone's recognizing one person to be the caliph, you don't want to then be accused of treason.
Yeah, exactly. So. And, if you're Ali, you want a decisive victory. You need to prove that you are still legitimate enough, and it's fine. But as you said, you don't want to be the last governor to go on the winning side, because surely that's a bad place to be.
Yep.
So all this culminated in July of 660 with Muawiyah receiving allegiance to himself as caliph in the holy city of Jerusalem, which was extremely important. So he is just showing himself as now he has this religious legitimacy, he has this political legitimacy, he is now caliph as opposed to Ali. And as we saw, Ali tried to react to this, but he was killed in January of 661 before anything could come of it.
True.
And if you remember, according to some sources, the Kharijites, these people who decided that none of the caliphs were legitimate, that they should actually just start over, that the only relevant authority was the Quran, and honestly trying to argue this in any other way is wrong and irreligious. These people had sent assassins all across. They'd sent assassins to the governor of Egypt, to Muawiyah and Ali on the same day. Ali was killed, ultimately, or at least wounded seriously enough that he died a few days later. Muawiyah was wounded, according to some sources, but ultimately managed to survive. So now with Ali dead and Muawiyah being around, well then, the situation seems to be a lot clearer for the caliphate overall, because one of the contenders that's still alive, while the other one is now gone. But yeah, as we mentioned last time, Serial, however, Ali sort of had his sons, Hassan and Hussein, as potential heirs, as you would imagine, They're grandchildren of the Prophet, they are children of a caliph,
right?
They are important people. You rate them highly. So the thing is that some of Ali's supporters side with his son Hassan and say, okay, nope, you're the caliph, you're the legitimate caliph. Which is why I also kind of went back and forth whether Hassan deserved his own episode. But ultimately, the fact is that he is still inheriting Ali's difficult position. Except now he is less legitimate. Because a bunch of people had given their allegiance to Ali at the start. But now Hassan has just received allegiance from the few supporters that were around him in Kufa. So it's not that effective anymore. So the thing is that Ali has been succeeded by his son Hassan, but only in Kufa, basically. And so Muawiyah just simply takes his army and slowly and menacingly advances towards Kufa. And ultimately, Hassan realizes that he can't win. He doesn't have the resources. He is only recognized in one city in the caliphate, and everybody has gone to Muawiyah's side. While he is extremely legitimate from, a bloodline point of view and a, being the son of the previous caliph point of view, he doesn't have the support. So ultimately, he accepts to surrender to Muawiyah and says, okay, he will be given a pension, he and his brother will be kept safe, and there will be no retribution.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
But Muawiyah can be caliph.
Yeah.
So that's quite nice. Also, it's kind of interesting that one of the terms that Hassan sort of asks for when he's surrendering to Muawiyah is that when Muawiyah is no longer caliph, he and his brother Hussein could be considered for caliph themselves.
Okay.
Because, okay, we're going to have a new election once you're no longer caliph, and we can just be part of it, and maybe we can just regain it without having to do this whole civil war business. That'd be nice. And Muawiyah seems to agree, depending on the sources.
Oh, I see.
Yes. In a lot of cases, in this early bit of Islam, you hear me say, depending on the sources, because people like to paint themselves in different ways, where it's like some people are like, he had an oath, and what did he do? And other people are like, no, he never agreed to anything. What do you mean? But ultimately now, with Hassan surrendering the caliphate, nobody else is claiming it. So Muawiyah enters the city of Kufa in July or September of 661, and he is ultimately unchallenged.
Mm-hmm.
Although it is interesting to note that he doesn't use the title of caliph himself, but it's only attributed to him by later writers who are saying, he had this position. He personally refers to himself as commander of the faithful, and in certain tellings, he reacts positively to being called a king, which is an interesting variation because it's sort of taking on a more political role than a religious role.
Yeah.
While Ali and Uthman and the previous 4 Rashidun caliphs, they're all very strongly religious. It looks like Muawiyah, he is religious, of course. He's not, an atheist or anything, but it does seem to be a secondary thing.
Yeah,
he is first the ruler of the caliphate, and secondly, he is the head of the faith.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's chosen a side on political expediency is more important than religious purity.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, this left the caliphate united except for the Kharijites, which were his only rivals. However, most of them had been killed by Ali in the Battle of Nahwan before, the previous year, but there were still some left. And these ones proclaimed that every other Muslim was a non-believer and they elected their own caliph.
Oh.
And they were just going to take revenge on the rest of the Muslim world.
No,
which was the rest of the world.
We will never have peace.
Nope, never, Serial. We had peace for
what?
1 year after Muhammad got back to Mecca.
Yeah, exactly. Because
then never again.
I was gonna say oh no, we're in a period of but all of this has nothing to do with external wars. This hasn't been other people invading. This hasn't been it's truly all just internal.
Yeah, this has been disagreeing on what exactly is going on. What is Islam meant to be?
Which I mean,
I get
it.
Figure it out together.
You're trying to start a religion. It's a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
But something tells me that maybe external forces will take advantage of this. Since if I were a neighboring empire and I saw this happening, I'd be like, well, they don't know what they're doing. Clearly, best time to strike.
Fair enough.
I'm just saying.
Well, we'll get to foreign policy in a moment.
Okay, great.
But yeah, it's now interesting to see that we've gone from the Rashidun Caliphate, the rightly guided caliphate, by these people who were, again, some of the first dozen Muslim men.
Yeah.
They knew the Prophet personally. They were with him when times were difficult.
Yep.
But now Islam is being led by one of the dynasties that used to be in power before Muhammad and had converted the latest.
I see, yeah.
So it's interesting. There's also a view that Muawiyah was the mastermind behind all this and engineered the circumstances around the murder of Uthman and the rise of Ali to regain power. While there are also others who see this coup as more of a natural process within society, because the old families that had better political ties, this Umayyad family, eventually are bubbling over to the top, since they're the only ones with connections and knowledge to properly govern this new empire. Unlike the companions of the Prophet, who had generally started out as religiously motivated outcasts, who were just, on the margins of society. I mean, not exactly on the margins of society, but still, they weren't at the center of society. And now the Umayyads are back on top, as they were in Mecca before the Caliphate started, before Islam started.
Yeah, I mean, the rich and powerful, both rich and powerful, so they have more resources to use to make their way back to the top. And of course, they will want to make their way back to the top because that's what they've grown accustomed to. So they're like, oh, okay, there's a new order that we can't fight anymore. If you can't beat them, join them. What is the saying?
Yeah, if you can't beat them, join them. Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, then new order, but I'm still gonna make sure that we are the ones on top of said order.
Yeah.
Which is a bit sad, honestly, but you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it happens in many revolutions where occasionally some people manage to find a way to just claw their way to the top or hold on to their position by shifting with the tides. But all right, you were talking about external policies, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, good news. The Roman Empire is very weak.
Okay, so it's the great time to do this, I guess.
Yes, they only have defensive armies left. They have nothing that is articulated enough to retake their lands. In the east, the Sassanid Empire is dead, and there is no empire of comparable size. In the west, there are some Roman lands, but again, they're mostly defensive. In the south, we have deals with the Nubians, and it's fine. So we're doing great. It's all brilliant. Because, once the Roman Emperor Constans II died, Muawiyah used Egypt as a springboard for new invasions of Roman lands, conquering Rhodes and Cyprus, raiding Sicily and Roman Africa. And eventually he set a blockade on Constantinople, which ended only on the agreement of more tribute to be paid. So essentially, it's also just a humiliating position for the Romans because Muawiyah isn't signing a peace treaty with them. They're not equals. They are small barbarians at the edge of our empire, and they need to pay us to be kept alive.
I see.
This blockade of Constantinople, however, is sometimes seen as a siege of Constantinople, depending on the sources. Generally, the Roman ones try to big it up. And it was led by Muawiyah's son, Yazid, who will be important in the future. But the siege was eventually broken thanks to the possibly first recorded use of Greek fire.
Ooh. Wait, I thought this was a thing
nice.
from, like, ancient history.
So it may have been recorded first during the reign of Anastasius, which was about 250-ish years ago.
No. I thought this was, like, Bronze Age Greece.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No. Greek fire is fully a medieval Roman thing.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So this might be the first recorded use of it
Which is
in battle. To
basically
just, like, dash the
napalm.
Islamic fleet.
Right?
It's basically napalm, yeah.
Fire that burns on top of water, yeah.
Yeah, it burns on water. If you throw water on it, it only grows hotter.
Yeah, it's an oil fire,
melt a lot
right?
of things.
Yeah.
It is an oil-based fire, yeah, again. I don't think we know the exact recipe, but...
No, we don't anymore.
Imagine throwing petrol on something and setting it on fire. That's the vibe you're getting.
Yeah. We came up with other horrible things to make up for it, so...
It's terrifying. And it floats on water, which is great for naval battles. Yeah,
of course.
Unfortunately for Muawiyah, after retreating from Constantinople, the fleet was eventually dashed by a storm on its way back, so... decided not to continue for a while. But at the same time, again, we've asked the Romans to pay us a bunch of money, but since we don't respect them, we're running frequent raids into Anatolia. So once or twice a year, armies of the Caliphate are going into Anatolia, raiding and pillaging, just as a training exercise.
Oh my god.
Just to keep practice.
Yep.
And this proved so destructive to the Romans that many great cities on the Aegean, such as Ephesus, were abandoned in favor of more defensible hilltop fortresses.
Yeah. I guess if it keeps happening, at some point you're like, I am done. I am done with this, not worth it.
He's just running away because we're getting raided. Every 6 months, we're getting raided. We just need to run away somewhere and hope that they don't come this way the next year.
Oof, that sounds really stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, of course, a constant sapping of Roman resources, which would make it ever easier to eventually take Constantinople and destroy the empire once and for all. Which is not exactly a messianic thing, but there is this sense that when Constantinople will fall, that's when the second coming of Jesus it will be, and that's when the end of the world arrives.
I see.
So, they're getting there. There's a prophetic edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in the east, in the meantime, there was expansion of the caliphate into the yet unconquered areas of Iran, such as Sistan to the far east, and Khorasan in the northeast. So we're starting to butt up against the borders of India in the east and the steppe in the north. We now basically have the old empire of Khosrow II plus Arabia, which is a neat deal to have in general.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, Cyril, the main problem, however, was internal. We don't have any external enemies that are strong enough to challenge us, but we have been through a gnarly civil war.
Yeah.
Muawiyah needs to make sure that the caliphate exists and will continue to do so consistently. So a large point of contention was the difference between those Arabs who had been settled, like those in Mecca, who before Islam lived in cities already, and those other Arabs who had been nomadic at the time. Because Muawiyah's family was part of the Meccan elite and had connections with many of the other settled Arabs, but these connections were absent among the more nomadic Arabs who felt excluded and treated as second-class subjects. And this also kind of matched a geographic division in the new caliphate, because the west of the empire had mainly been taken over and controlled by the elites, while the east was mainly taken over by all those who were left behind. In particular, in the east, some of the newcomers had settled in Kufa, where Ali would later have trouble with them. But others would move further east into Iran, where they could assert their independence from central authority. And particularly Khorasan will be very important. We'll be talking about it in 150 years, definitely. But the problem here is also that the incoming Arabs wanted their pick of the limited resources, since all the Iranians still lived in the region, you know. What are we going to do? Do we just take their lands? Do we buy it off them? What's the plan?
Yeah.
Because these people live here. And so what Muawiyah did, or rather his semi-autonomous governors of the east did, was to take 50,000 Arab tribesmen and their families and transplant them into Khorasan in the northeast of Iran, which has a couple of advantages, which is it's going to settle an already conquered territory and gain a nice clean border on the Oxus River, which used to be the old Sassanid border. So Khorasan becomes this strange exclave of Arabs from, again, these more nomadic tribal groups, just sitting there on the border, itching for a fight, and looking forward to enjoying the fruits of this new religion, this new tradition. And at the same time, the old Sassanid royal lands that the King of Kings used to have, which had been so far kept as common property of the original conquerors, were eventually confiscated and given out to tribal leaders that were ready to obey Muawiyah and the new caliphate. So he is forming a new aristocracy out of people who would be useful to him, and they get all the cool lands in Iraq, which are very fertile, very pleasant to own. And in exchange, all they have to do is support Muawiyah and his claims on the caliphate. So, brilliant times. Instead, in the west, in Syria, Muawiyah secured the loyalty of the local tribesmen by marrying the daughter of one of the leaders of these groups of Syrian Arabs, which had long served the Romans under the Ghassanids, from which they became Christian. And this woman would eventually give Muawiyah his son called Yazid, of which we'll speak more later.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Ominous.
The system is different from what happened in Iraq, because in Syria, the tribesmen were allowed to continue living as they always had, with their loyalty only secured at a personal level with alliances, while the tribes in Iraq were more forcibly settled and controlled more directly by the local governor. So it looks like Muawiyah is very comfortable in Syria, and Damascus especially, and is trying to take a personal control, while in further out regions of the caliphate, he is trusting his governors to ensure that everything is run properly.
Yeah.
But the positions at the very, very top of the caliphate, that is to say all the governors, known as emirs, came directly from people who were closely connected to the family of the caliph, and only in small part from the Umayyad family itself, with other members of the family settled in the traditional region around Medina. So he's not doing the Uthman thing of making all the governors Umayyads.
Yeah.
He's saying, okay, some of them can be Umayyads, but other of them need to just be men who are loyal to Muawiyah, because otherwise, what are you doing? We don't want to cause resentment among the caliphate.
Yeah.
So essentially what we have is a very loose system of control, a very decentralized system, with governors in charge of massive provinces who were virtually free to raise armies, administer justice, supervise taxation, and send whatever was extra to the new capital of Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially he is just making sure that as long as you pay taxes, you can basically be your own independent king of Egypt or Palestine or Arabia. And all is important is that you just respect Damascus, and if the army is needed, you come over to us.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Incidentally, Muawiyah moved the capital to Damascus because it was his power base, but also because he needed to rule from the old Sassanid and Roman power bases to control his empire. Because, well, the fact is that Medina is symbolically important because that's where Muhammad went and everything, but it's very disconnected from the rest of the Middle East.
Yeah.
While Damascus has been on trade routes forever, and, you know, it's been an important center of society that's been there, and, you know, it used to be a home for several Roman governors, and yeah, so Muawiyah realizes that if he wants to govern this unified empire properly, he needs to be towards the center where the action is and understand how to run everything properly.
Yeah, like they took over this empire that extends so much further west than the area that what they were concerned with before. So they can't just have everything happen in the east. Otherwise, the entire west of the empire will just do whatever.
Yeah. Although it is interesting to notice that in the future, the Abbasids would notice in the years to come that the old site of Ctesiphon is very lucrative and very important. And there's a reason it was the center of the Sassanid Empire, and that might be a good choice for their new capital eventually, but they're going to build it in about 100 years, so we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, ultimately, in the Caliphate, there are few but extremely large governorships. So there's 2 of them in Iraq, one in the north in Kufa, and one in the south based on Basra, which are all connected to their neighboring regions of Iran. So essentially you get North Iran, South Iran, associated to their north and south Iraq. And then there's one massive governorship in Egypt, and a few religiously based governorships in Arabia, while Syria was Muawiyah's personal domain. So he had been governor of it since it was conquered. He's going to continue doing that job.
I see, yeah.
Now, the advantage of this system is that all the conquered territories had been part of the Roman or Sassanid empires, which were both highly bureaucratic and primed for easy administration. You know, in Iran in particular, we saw, thanks to Kavad I and Khosrow I's reforms, they'd been trying to move away from nobles governing things and going into just more administrators doing this.
Yeah.
It's also quite nice because it means that the Arab tribes aren't in charge of collecting taxes, but it's the governors who gather taxes and then eventually distribute them to the tribe leaders when necessary. So you don't have the old Sassanid problem of the nobles collecting taxes and then giving them to the king.
Yeah.
You have that the governors get the taxes and then give them to people as necessary. Also, fun news, Serial.
Oh.
You might remember, but probably don't.
Okay.
The people binge listening might remember that during Khosrow II's episode, I mentioned a man called Mansur ibn Sarjun.
Oh, there's no chance.
Yeah, who had been an administrator in Roman Syria, who had kept his job during the Sassanid rule, and then carried on during his job in the Caliphate.
Wait, yeah, no, I remember. Wasn't he like...
He's great, I love him.
Wasn't this in Egypt, or am I missing?
It was actually in Damascus, because he was one of these people in Damascus, and when the Romans came back, he was tortured by Heraclius, and so when...
Yeah, and he writes about it, and then
arrived,
it's like, okay, I'll just continue doing my job. And I remember we talked about him because I found it very funny. That's like, yeah, there's this major event happening, but like people still need to do the job they're doing.
Yeah, he's just trying his best, man. And so, yeah, so he does all this. And, well, he's one of the people who opened the door of Damascus to the Caliphate in exchange for safe conduct. This was very common across most of the empire, since people just have to continue living their lives, and the caliphs were smart enough not to needlessly antagonize people.
Yeah.
And it's very fun because Mansur's son Sarjun became the personal secretary to Muawiyah back when he was governor.
Okay.
And eventually managed to become the man in charge of the administration of all of Syria, all while remaining Christian, which is pretty cool.
Wow. They must have been good at their job.
Yeah, exactly.
These
And it's
people.
great that there's just this family of people who is just chilling and having a lovely time. Incidentally, Sarjun's son will become a saint.
Oh, wow.
So they're very Christian.
For good bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly. He just does a great job. He's doing well.
Saint of office workers.
So yeah, in this administration, there was a loose structure of Arabian administration cross-checking things, but the main principle is that everything should broadly remain how it was working. So this even extended to coinage, where generally the old Roman and Sassanid coins continued to be used, with local governors just minting new coins if there was a need, but not really putting any new designs on them or anything. I will show you as a portrait what these coins look like, but you can tell that they're massively Sassanid.
Yeah,
you can tell that
they just
only
kept
slightly
the
different.
vibe that they already had.
Yeah, exactly. This generally just shows a great religious toleration from the Caliphate, with Christians especially being treated very well, though of course not as well as Muslims. Surely,
Well,
if you
no, they
convert,
have
you
their
get perks.
favorites, you know, but...
And I mentioned this in a previous episode, but only about 10% of the population of the empire was Muslim at this point.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very small conversion, and most of the people are the Arabs that came with the invasions. You know, it's going to eventually trickle down to the local populations, but for now it's a very, not exactly elite religion, but it's more of a limited Arab religion.
I mean, it makes sense, it's very new, and they already are changing the government of a place. You don't want to then force everyone to convert to something very new that, like, it would just cause a revolt for no reason.
It also looks like, regarding Christianity, Muawiyah himself seems to have had a sort of a special relationship to it in some way, with Christian sources praising him and mentioning his respect for them and his arbitration between Christian groups. And again, on this topic, it's interesting that he had his coronation in Jerusalem, is said to have worshipped at Mary's tomb and on Mount Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified. But unfortunately, the significance is a bit lost to us. He doesn't tell us why he's doing this. You know,
I see, yeah.
Why does he care? Again, this is also a time period where Islam itself is being defined. We're still figuring out what Islam means. Like, how Christian is it?
Yeah.
How Jewish is it? How much of its own thing is it? It's still trying to understand this.
Yeah.
But this sort of suggests that he might have been trying to move the religious center of the caliphate from Medina, which he never visits as caliph, to the city of Jerusalem, which fell under his authority of Syria. Or maybe this was a way for him to show his Christian subjects, who were the main population of Syria, that this new religion had not come to erase Christianity, but to build upon it. So he's saying, you know, we're not saying that you're all horrible heretics, we're just saying that we have an update to your religion. If you would like to hear about it,
Yeah.
you can
The new
learn
patch just came out.
Yeah, exactly. We've completed the religion. You did a good job so far, but now we have a new prophet. The last prophet, it's great, but you just need to figure it out. So in general, it's very interesting to see that the caliphate is so decentralized, with governors being basically free to do whatever they want, sending only about 1/10 to 1/5 of taxes back to Damascus, with the rest being spent internally on the province. There was also no unified army of the caliphate, with Muawiyah himself just relying on his Syrian armies and Syrian taxes to just run what he had. So it's very loosely held together.
I see, yeah.
This is also a way of dealing with the administration of an empire that is this large, because this is now the largest empire the world has yet seen.
Yep.
Because it would take several weeks to get a message from Damascus to even the closer regions, such as Egypt and Iraq, let alone the further reaches.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I'm trying to deal with a rebellion
No, that's not
at the
gonna
far
happen.
east of my empire, and it takes a month for me to get news and send orders back and forth, I'm not going to be able to react effectively or deal with this properly. You know, I'm going to be giving bad orders. I'm going to be receiving old intelligence. It's much better to have a governor there who can quickly react to problems and just know what's going on.
Yeah.
But it looked like Muawiyah was very good at this style of government, which mainly involved him keeping careful control over the governors. And once Ali was gone, he never had to use his army to enforce his will, but everything ran like clockwork. Because Muawiyah just trusts these people, and he knows who they are, and he's personally chose them. Now, of course, This system was very precarious and required a strong leader at the center to hold everything together. So there will be trouble when Muawiyah is going to die,
Yeah.
but for the time being, everything's fine.
Yeah, it's not a long-lasting system. It just works for now.
Yeah, it works well because Muawiyah's in it. But if there's a Muawiyah-shaped hole in the system, then that's going to be problematic. But yeah, we're even told regarding the quality of his government by John of Fenwick, a Christian monk from northern Iraq, that justice flourished in his time, and there was a great peace in the regions under his control. Once Muawiyah had come to the throne, the peace throughout the world was such that we have never heard, either from our fathers or from our grandparents, or seen that there had ever been any like it. Which, considering that the last time there had been more than a decade of peace was under Qabad I at the beginning of the previous century, is a pretty accurate statement. So everybody's relieved and saying, oh, thank goodness we can actually calm down. We can have like a decade to build our lives and continue living. That's brilliant. I love it. Muawiyah then developed some building projects, such as agricultural developments in the Hejaz region around Medina, and in the former Sassanid royal lands, which would be worked by scores of freedmen. He also built a palace for himself in Damascus, but it apparently failed to impress a Roman ambassador since it was made only of bricks and wood, with the ambassador saying, "The ceiling will do for birds, and the walls will do for rats."
Damn. That's such a burn.
But that's typically Roman to not appreciate foreigners, so, good for them, I suppose. But what is Muawiyah like as a person? What is he like as a guy?
Yeah, tell me.
So, we're told that he was especially fond of food and got quite overweight in his later years. And we get a brilliant anecdote when a man came to visit him and extended his leg.
Okay.
For some reason. He's visiting, jaunty leg, have a look.
Sure.
And Muawiyah comments that he would like to have a slave girl with legs like his.
Huh?
To which the original man replied, "And a slave girl with a bottom like yours, O Commander of the Faithful."
No! Wait, that's so funny. No.
So, brilliant. Giving each other appreciations. Just bros giving bros compliments.
Did they? Or was he mad?
No, he was chill. He laughed. He had a great time.
Okay. I thought he would,
well, he was like,
ask,
hilarious.
Like,
Love
oh
this.
my god, I was like, you're gonna be executed for saying that.
Yeah. But no, having a happy time.
Okay.
Another thing Muawiyah enjoyed, apparently, was sex, and he is said to have had many concubines, though he only did have the accepted limit of 4 wives. So in Islam, you can have a maximum of 4 wives, as long as you can treat them all equally. But he had a bunch of concubines, because he's the caliph. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Are you going to say no?
In this regard, we get an anecdote of one of his courtiers accusing him of being bossed around by his wife, to which Muawiyah answered, "The wives of noble men dominate them. Base men lord it over their wives. So you should listen to your wives." Which is nice. But the main character trait that sources give to Muawiyah is that of cunning, making sure to risk as little as he could before actually committing his resources to a problem. Something that even the Romans praise him for. We also get an anecdote in Al-Tabari where a man was constantly rude to Muawiyah. So when the caliph was asked, "Why are you gentle with this man?" he answered, "I do not come between people and their tongues as long as they do not come between us and our rule."
So, I do not care what he has to say about me personally as long as it's not affecting my ability to rule or the empire at large.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
I don't care what people say. I just want to do my job.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But Serial, Muawiyah gets to his late 60s, early 70s. He's lived a good life, but he begins to think about the succession.
Yeah, because he's getting old.
Yeah. He's one of the only caliphs to be able to get old.
Exactly. I'm
so
like, for
far,
a ruler, you are
impressive.
ancient. Good job.
Incredible. And, well, he has his son. His son Yazid is in late 20s, early 30s by this point. And he says, you know what? My son should be my heir. He should succeed me.
Sure.
Can you see any problems, Ariel?
This is not how that has worked so far.
Correct.
So this has no precedence.
Yeah, so far this has been no precedent. The caliphate has generally been chosen by election in a way.
Yeah.
And you remember that when Hassan surrendered to Muawiyah at the start of his
Yeah,
caliphate,
he said
part of the condition
we need to
was
be able
that,
to run for caliph.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Muawiyah just saying, my son will be caliph after me.
I don't think
Questionable.
so. Yeah. Sounds like another civil war. Although, to be honest, the fact that they have to be chosen and people cannot choose them in like a chill manner and they have to go into a civil war every time makes it not the best decision either.
I mean, the first 3 caliphs were chosen without a civil war. It was like,
yeah, but they were also
it was
murdered.
with Ali, things. I mean, they were murdered, but yeah, fair enough.
Like, it was not a
Bad
peaceful
times.
time. I'm sorry to tell you this.
No, it's been complicated.
People were not chill with the decision.
I mean, I guess this is what Muawiyah is thinking. I mean, he lived through the civil war.
Like,
He's
a decision was
do
made.
we want to do
however,
this again or no? Yeah.
It was not chill.
It's also interesting because Yazid was descended from the Arab tribespeople of Syria, which were so important to support Muawiyah's reign. So he is also making sure that everything is consolidated around Damascus, making sure that that's nice and solid. But this is interesting because it's transforming the caliphate from something more similar to the papacy, you could imagine it, where there's like an election and it's not family line that does this. Or maybe you can be related, but it's not my son that succeeds me.
Yeah, no.
But now it is more into a traditional monarchy like Rome or Iran, where I am the ruler, my son will succeed me, his son will succeed him, and so on until the end of time, hopefully. So ultimately, Muawiyah wants to consolidate the succession. So luckily for him, most of the governors are happy enough with this choice of successor since they're basically independent anyway. So
they're like, yeah,
who
do
cares
whatever.
about Syria? It'll be fine.
Do what you'd like.
But Muawiyah decided to appropriately compensate any people who might disapprove of such direct succession. So he just goes, sends around some bribes, says, hey, give you some tax leniency, I'll give you a nice horse, whatever. Just make sure that you accept my son as the successor.
So what happens with our 2 fun characters who specifically asked to be able to run?
Yes, Hassan Hussein. Well, there are those who are unhappy with this and wanted some sort of council or common decision for who should be caliph. And there are a few of them who are relevant. Among these were Ali's son, who had briefly claimed the caliphate. Hassan, he had already died by this point.
I see.
According to Sunni sources, he had died of natural causes. According to Shia sources, he had been murdered by Muawiyah.
I see.
As a threat.
Oof.
Again, the Shia tradition is that all their imams, essentially their version of the caliphs, are all murdered.
Yeah.
There's this sort of martyrological view of it.
Yeah, and also like the whole this is not legitimate because...
Yeah, that's right. But Ali's other son, Hussein, is still around, and he thinks, well, I'm the grandson of the Prophet. I should
what
probably
more do you want?
have a say in this. Yeah. And not only that, there's also another man called Abdallah ibn al-Zubayr, who you'll want to remember for later, who was the son of one of these very close companions of the Prophet. So, again, you can see these 2 parties split together. The old money party of Muawiyah and the Umayyads, together with the other party of those who were closest to the Prophet, with Hussein
I see. Yep, I see how it's...
Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr.
Yep.
One of the reasons why they didn't want Yazid specifically was, apart from the precedent it's setting, is that they thought him morally unfit to rule because he was dedicated to wine, music, dancers, and his pet monkey.
What?
He has a pet monkey he really likes.
I see. Okay.
He has a great time with it. And also, it's interesting to note here that father-to-son succession was not the typical path in Arabian society. But you would typically choose the oldest or most accomplished relative of your side of the family.
I see, yeah. So still family,
and
just
Yazid
not
is neither
like
of these.
son.
Yeah, it's basically, you look in your extended family, second cousins or anything, and you choose the most accomplished person. Okay, you will be the head of the family. And then it just transmits itself that way.
I see.
And, well, Yazid was a young man and not especially accomplished. Like, he had sort of led the expedition against Constantinople, but he didn't conquer Constantinople, did he? He just led an expedition, did reasonably well, and that's all we have. He's not this great hero where it's like, oh, well, of course you have to succeed. You're so brilliant. it's obvious that he's succeeding because he's Muawiyah's son, not because he's the best choice.
Yeah.
It is also kind of unclear why Muawiyah chose Yazid out of all people. But the problem is that the only members of his clan that were still alive and that were eligible were other sons who he thought that were less competent or even more controversial. So either he would choose somebody outside the family, which he was not about to do because, as you mentioned, risk of civil war, risk of messes.
Yeah.
Or he just says, well, yes, Yazid isn't great, but he's going to be stable, isn't he? So let's go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so things would eventually kick off later on. We'll see in next episode how people deal with the succession of Yazid. But Muawiyah died after a short illness in April of 680, sometimes in his 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And the throne just passed to his son.
Okay, so it happened.
Yeah. He was eventually then buried with a shirt gifted to him by the Prophet Muhammad himself, with hair and nail clippings of the Prophet, which he had collected while he was acting as his secretary. So this is, again, even in his burial, Muawiyah is trying to show people that, yes, even though he came late, even though he was one of the later people to convert, he is still legitimate enough because he knew the Prophet personally. He's not just some random guy.
And look at all the trinkets and tchotchkes and
Exactly. So yeah, so that is the end of Muawiyah the First's life. What do you think of him, Serial?
Once again, controversial.
Yes, this is a controversial time.
Yeah, truly, like anybody who would get to be caliph is gonna have people for them and against them, and it's gonna be, but that was very interesting. It's cool to see, since it's still such a short period of time, everything is so recent, and we're so close to the actual beginning of the religion.
Yeah,
that is interesting to see what different forces are like going towards, or what some people value and what other people value, and no, this is more legitimate because this, or this is more legitimate because this, and like how they're all scrambling to find their place as quick as possible. It is interesting. It's also very interesting that it's like, so much is happening internally that I'm not even thinking about the empire as a whole. So I guess it was nice to get a bit of a glimpse into like what this particular ruler has done for the empire.
Yeah. It's also interesting to see that we've sort of, in a way, gone back to the old Cyrus-style empire, which is just like, there is a core that is the bit that I'm ruling, and then everything else is just like, just do whatever, just pay taxes.
Yep.
I
You're just
don't care what
aiding
you're
the
doing.
empire by existing, and that's like about as much as we need.
Yeah, so we'll see how this empire evolves because, we'll have to see. There's a bunch of social issues bubbling under the table.
Oh, of
There's
course,
a bunch of governmental issues that are bubbling, and we'll have to find out what happens. But for now, Muawiyah has managed to establish an Umayyad Caliphate for the first time, but we'll see how long it lasts. We'll see if it's something that just fizzles out into nothing, or if it's something that manages to last decades and centuries. All right, Serial. So are you ready to rate Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Well, he died of old age after a brief illness.
Not very interesting. I mean, interesting in the sense of with how it's been going, very impressive.
Yeah.
That he made it to old age. But the death itself,
Yeah, I mean, he dies in his 70s.
Yeah.
After a well-lived life. Good. Good for him.
Yep.
I suppose. Yeah, I don't know how many. I might give it like a 1 just as a token to be like, good job, you surviving to old age. But I don't think it deserves much more. Yeah, I think I'm sticking with a 1. How about you?
Yeah, same.
So with a 1 and a 1, he gets a 1 out of 10 for final moments. Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? Well, as we saw, he doesn't really conquer very much. He is part of the initial expedition that goes out. Well, he's part of the wars originally fighting against Muhammad. They lose.
Yep.
But then eventually when the Caliphate shows up, He is part of the expedition that fights at the Battle of Yarmouk. He manages to defeat the great Roman army that was there. He's not the overall commander, but he has a contingent of soldiers he's commanding.
Mm-hmm.
He then manages to conquer Syria and consolidate it, partially with the help of his brother, partially on his own. Does quite well. He wins the Battle of the Masts. He destroys the Roman fleet. Does a great job. Forces a Roman emperor to swim to safety. That's pretty cool. That's very impressive.
Yep.
He then sort of fights with Ali. He has this battle that goes on for like a couple of days. Then he thinks of the stratagem of putting the Quran on top in front of the spears and saying, okay, there we go.
That was very shitty. I don't know if a true believer would do that, if I do say so myself.
I mean, that's what Ali is saying. Ali is saying, well,
what the hell? Yeah.
I am the Prophet's adopted son, adopted brother, son-in-law, and spiritual brother. How are you more legitimate than me? You converted only when you had no choice left. So this is why Muawiyah gets himself buried with all these relics of the Prophet.
Yeah, because he has to be like, I really need to double down. Yeah.
It's fine.
There must be no doubt about this, otherwise I'm screwed.
Yeah. So he does all that. Then he is part of the expedition that sort of subdues Armenia. That's pretty impressive. He takes over Cyprus and Rhodes. He leads raids around. He manages to blockade Constantinople for a while, which, doesn't have a great result. He doesn't conquer the city or anything. He just gets money from them.
But, sure.
And then he sort of institutes this tradition of raiding the Romans for target practice once or twice a year.
I'm not mad. After all the Romans have put us through, I'm like, yeah.
After all they've done, yes, exactly.
Whatever.
Finally, they have a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah.
So he does all this. Personally, we're not really told of any great deeds that he does. He's not like Ali personally ripping a door off a fort and using it as a shield. That's a different vibe.
Yeah, that's the legendary sort of vibe.
Yeah. I think, he's all right. I think he does. He's functional. He does a reasonable job.
Smart man. And I mean smart in the unempathetic, in the self-serving way.
Yeah, I mean, his cunning is one of his main features.
He's clearly
known as a man who will.
He is old money, right? Like, he is one of these families that,
yes.
that just wanted to be back in power. And I think it shows at how, opportunistic he is. Which doesn't mean that it makes him a bad ruler. I'm just, I have my own biases. There's a reason why I hate the nobles, and this gives me noble behavior.
Yeah, he is basically a noble who has decided to just assert his family on top of the caliphate.
I mean,
It used to be, in a way, a merit-based system before him, and now he's saying, no, it's my family.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that again. What if we lose power again? I'm not going through this.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, you could look at the Rashidun Caliphate as sort of a republic, where they just elect their leaders every time they die.
Not as in, bad decision, but badly at, sticking with whatever they choose.
Yeah, sure. But now he's essentially orchestrated a very elaborate coup where it's now a monarchy.
Yep.
But we'll get to that in the next categories. But for battle hardness, what do you think? I think that he is functional, but not outstanding.
I mean, he did some stuff, right?
Yeah.
He was practicing his military skill before becoming caliph. And if I remember correctly, it was fine. Just he didn't do anything particularly extraordinary.
Yeah, the main highlight of his military career, I would say, is defeating the Roman fleet at the Battle of the Masts.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially saying the Romans, they don't own the Mediterranean anymore. We're now sharing.
Which that must have been quite a blow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Romans were still hoping to take a fleet and reconquer Egypt, but now they can't do that anymore. They don't have the resources. This is an old fleet that they had when the empire controlled the eastern Mediterranean. Now they're just Anatolia and bits of Greece. The empire has fallen.
Yep.
So I think for the Battle of the Masts, I'm going to go with a 6 for Muawiyah. What are you thinking?
Yeah, that sounds.
You agree?
Yeah. That sounds more than reasonable.
Sounds
good. I wasn't extremely impressed, but he knows his way around.
Yeah, it's worth it. Okay, so with a 6 and a 6, he gets a 12 out of 20 for battle hardness. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? Well, I don't know if you want to consider this schemy or not. I don't know. The last minute conversion.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say his entire vibe gives me scheminess. It's just not like one particular thing. It's just like, okay, what do I do to come on top of this
No, I mean,
situation? But
he has a lot of different bits of scheminess. I mean, he has the part where he is kind of recommending that Uthman sending the army to destroy the rebels before he is attacked. And then when Uthman is besieged, Muawiyah sends his army to Medina in any case. And it's just like, no, I'm going to take care of this. Then Muawiyah, when Ali is elected, he just waits. He waits to see how things will play out. And then eventually he decides to take a side when he sees that Ali is weak. And he takes the side as the defender of Uthman, the defender of the Umayyad clan.
yeah.
He also does the whole stratagem at the Battle of Siffin of putting the Quran on the spears.
Yeah.
And saying,
That's
like,
extremely
we can't fight
schemy.
anymore. We need to talk about this. He then also does the whole stratagem. It's not him personally, but it's in his name, of saying, I, the representative of Ali, depose Ali.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
that means Muawiyah can be caliph now. That's brilliant.
Oh, that
Hooray.
was extremely, no.
So that's very schemy.
Yeah.
It's intense. Then there's the whole thing of when Hassan surrenders to him the caliphate, but saying, but we're going to vote for it afterwards, right? Right?
Yeah.
And Muawiyah's like, yeah, we're totally doing it. It'll be fine.
Totally voting for it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Which is, again, why certain sources say, no, Muawiyah never agreed to anything. That wasn't part of the deal. And other sources say, no, he did agree to something and he just went back on his word.
Well, if it's not written down, how are you going to prove it?
That's Muawiyah's argument, yes.
Get everything
It's like,
in
do you
writing.
have the piece of paper? I don't think so. Yeah.
This is lawyer behavior.
Extremely lawyer behavior. And then other scheminess bits. Nothing directly comes to mind. I would say it's a pretty good... I mean, scheminess, no. Let me think about this. There is the Shia tradition that Hassan is murdered by Muawiyah after being deposed as caliph. So instead of letting him go, he just has him murdered eventually. There is, of course, the mainstream tradition that Hassan just dies a natural death on his own with a pension. So, depends if you think Muawiyah would do this.
Yeah, could go either way, right? It's just more of a propaganda thing of like, what do you believe about this person?
I mean, vibe-wise, he sounds like the type of man who would call a hit on a potential rival just because.
For sure.
So, I'd be willing to believe that, but who knows? And let me think, is there anything else that's coming to mind? Again, very minor scheminess, but the fact that he just sends around bribes and chats to people saying, no, my son will succeed. This is how we're doing things now.
Well, yeah, I was going to say...
I don't know if that's massively schemy
the
or
actual
just,
fact
good
that
politics,
he wants to change how caliphs have been chosen.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was done in a very schemy way or just like truly above table,
Again, it's how much of politics is above table and how much of it is...
Yeah.
Trust me, it'll work out. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Here, have a free horse.
Yeah, I don't know why I even try.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So, yeah, I think scheminess, he's quite good. He's one of the schemier people we've met. How high are you planning on? What's your baseline score?
A 7.
7 is quite good, yeah.
I could go either way, up or down.
See, I feel like the thing that would get... I feel like 7, he's earned it fully.
Yeah.
The thing that would get him to an 8 is killing Hassan.
Yeah.
And also only converting...
Yeah.
Honestly, the fact is that even if he didn't convert at the last moment, the tradition is that he converted in secret and just hid it from everybody.
That is more schemy.
And just schemed to help the Muslims.
That is more schemy.
Win the war.
At least
yeah.
For once, like playing to not just his own team, but like the team, as in Islam. But I feel like with how self-serving he's been, I don't know if he would have done that, Especially since like he usually just waits to see who's gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the whole... I think that it's such a personal characteristic of him. But 8 is a really high score. Who did we give an 8 before to? So we gave 7 to Khosrow II. I gave an 8 to Kavad for Communist Revolution. Which is
so good. Ah, so unexpected.
We gave a 9 to Musa for the whole overthrowing.
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, but
murdering things. You gave an 8 to Antiochus the Great for the whole, oh no, it was my council.
it was the council.
The horror.
Oh no.
Yeah.
They did it again. Shucks.
I give an 8 to Alexander the Great for possibly killing his dad and just,
Oh yeah,
that
was
being
a cool
God and all that.
conspiracy. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Darius, our boy, who got a full 10.
Yeah, no, but like that's a different level of scheminess.
I don't feel like I can give him an 8, but if you give him an 8, I would understand.
No, I was going for the 7, and I think a 7 sounds good to me.
7? Okay, fine.
Your argument wasn't convincing enough for me to be like, wait, I need to go higher. Like, no, I feel like I nailed it.
Okay, so with a 7 and a 7, he gets a 14 out of 20 for scheminess. Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? Well, he becomes caliph despite being one of the last people to convert to Islam, so that's pretty suspicious. He changes the way the caliphate works. It's now a hereditary thing. It's now in the family.
Yeah, that's a huge change, actually.
That's pretty significant. He, again, maybe kills the grandson of the prophet. That's bad.
If that happened...
That's pretty bad. Yeah. That's a bad time.
Like, from a human perspective, I'm like, of course he did. He's a noble. Like, whatever it takes. Yeah. It means nothing that was the son of the prophet. Like, it's just another person. But from a religious perspective, ooh.
That's dark, yeah. That's intense. So he does all of that.
Akin to Judas.
Yeah, pretty Judasy.
Maybe not the same level, but like,
Yeah, it's not far off, is it?
No. The crime is, yeah.
But yeah, so he does all of this. Again, he uses the Quran stratagem. That's pretty sacrilegious.
Yeah, no, that is, I mean, clearly, I feel like it's so wild that he's like, oh no, trust me, I do care about religion. And then he does these things. That's why I'm like, he probably killed the son of the prophet.
Grandson, but yes.
Sorry, grandson of the prophet. Like, I don't see it being far off. Because clearly...
Mm-hmm.
And I also think he only converted like because he had to, because all of his other behavior points in that direction.
Sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of he is the caliph, and again, also most political matters. He's not saying, "Oh, religion is most important."
Yeah, no, exactly. And then he's like, "No, the politics are the thing."
Is important afterwards. Yeah. So that's an interesting shift in the caliphate.
Come on, there's no way. He didn't care about it more than necessary to like rule and be chosen ruler.
Yeah. Also, during the caliphate of Uthman, when Uthman was busy saying, "No, please, come on, guys, let's make peace. Let's be all friends. It'll be fine. This will work out."
We don't want to
Muawiyah
start
was like,
this,
"No, screw this. I'm sending the army to Medina to kick everybody's ass, and then they'll obey."
Yeah, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah. So while Uthman was reluctant to the point of dying himself, of hurting any other Muslims, Muawiyah was like, no, we're doing this.
Like, I will hurt somebody so I don't get hurt.
So that's pretty harsh.
You think?
On a personal level, he was a little bit, he was slightly more, while other caliphs were parsimonious men who were just very, straight and narrow, very regular. He enjoys food, he enjoys women, he enjoys being a cunning man. He is not what you'd expect to be a religious leader. Nope. He is
at least not
ruthless,
not of
enjoys
this
pleasures
type
of
religion,
life.
right? There's many types.
That's right, yeah. So I think there's quite a bit of shock factor here.
Yeah.
How are you rating it?
I mean, unless it's, it's shocking, but it's not. Like, it's shocking that we're still doubting about it, because I'm like, it's pretty clear the kind of man he was. At least from this retelling, right? I was not there. It's not like I would know.
Yeah. Incidentally, just on Muawiyah's character, there is a Saudi series on Muawiyah that came out last year, which I watched, which takes some historical positions.
Interesting.
Which you may or may not want to, because it is very clearly a Sunni show.
I see.
You can tell that in the conflict with Ali is not treated as reverently as Shias would.
Most people have opinions, right? So if that is the take that you're going for.
Yeah, but if you want to see this in like 20 episodes, you want to see the story play out over 20 episodes, it was entertaining enough. I thought it was an enjoyable time.
Interesting.
You know what? Not the best show I've ever seen, but worth a watch if you're interested.
I will think about it.
But okay, so shock factor, Sarah, what points are you starting from?
here's the thing I was saying. Shocking behavior, but it all checks out with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm not shocked that he did something off character. Quite the opposite. I'm like, yeah, no, this makes sense.
I think it's on brand,
Yes,
but
yes.
it is...
But it is extremely
still
shocking.
shocking.
The putting pages of the Quran as... Oh, come on. That is low.
Yeah, it's a harsh time. I'm again 7 or 8 is my vibe.
Yeah.
I think we have had more shocking people, but
no, this is a pretty it's a
he's
pretty
really
wild ride.
Incidentally, you gave Ali an 8 and I gave him a 7.
True.
If that helps.
I was gonna say I would go for a 7, but
okay.
Well, with Ali, we had all of these like legendary tales.
Yeah, and there was the whole, becoming caliph after the murder of a previous caliph.
Yeah,
that was a whole bit. There was drama involved.
In all of these episodes, there's been so much drama.
Yeah, so much drama going on. I think, honestly, with the whole transformation of the caliphate and taking control of it, I think I'm going to give him an 8. I think he is more
I think I have to go to an 8 because I can't believe if I gave Ali an 8, yeah, he still deserves an 8. Yeah,
fair enough. So with an 8 and an 8, he gets a 16 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron Shine. How good is he for the empire in general and Iran in particular? So let's look at Iran specifically, any specific policies he has. He expands the caliphate a bit in that direction. He takes Sistan and Khorasan. He settles a bunch of Arabs in Khorasan. That's a bit outside Iran, but the Iranicate world, let's say. So he does that. That's helping consolidate the caliphate reasonably good. Iran is mostly being governed from centers in Iraq at this point. So that's a bit. Generally, Iran doesn't much suffer or prosper under him. It's doing fine. It's carrying on.
Yeah.
So I'd say broadly doesn't change the needle too much in Iran. As for the caliphate in general, well, he stabilizes it. There was the crisis with Ali, and after Muawiyah, I won't tell you how many years, but there's a significant amount of years where the caliphate is at peace. And as we said, these Christian authors say that it was doing great. Everybody was happy and they were having a brilliant time and it was going
Everyone was just having dances every day and just like playing games and everyone was so happy about everything. And nothing went wrong.
Everybody got a free puppy. It was brilliant. As we saw, there was a lot of religious toleration. The Christians were respected and could have positions in government and worked well. And, yes, they pay extra taxes, but they're not being burnt at the stake or anything, good.
Which they will do themselves.
One day it'll happen. Yeah, exactly. Christians will burn other Christians for being a different flavor of Christian.
Yeah.
So, we'll always be like, you know what? Yeah, whatever. Just chill. Just pay taxes, please. Okay, done.
Pay us and then you can do whatever. But more pragmatic.
Yeah, so he's doing that. And as we mentioned, the caliphate is stabilizing. It is expanding. So he's getting Cyprus, getting Rhodes, leading some raids into Roman territory. The prestige is very high. We are, again, sort of like back in the old Achaemenid days, we are the one empire. And then there's other tiny barbarians at the borders that we occasionally look at, but we don't really care much about. So that's very impressive.
Yeah.
He is conquering lands in the east of the caliphate.
Yeah, we even expanded. Yeah.
Doesn't have that much conquest personally, but it works well enough. He personally helps conquer Syria and Armenia.
True. That was a whole thing.
That's before he's caliph, but pretty impressive. He is also the architect of the caliphal fleet. He's the architect of destroying the Roman hegemony over the Mediterranean. That's important. Yep. That's pretty good. And just in general, the caliphate seems to be doing well. He creates a bunch of irrigation projects in Iraq. He ensures that the economy is going well. Mm-hmm. He keeps up the old coinage of the Roman and Iranian sides just to make sure it's all running smoothly. And broadly, he's just a good governor and a competent administrator.
I'm so mad
again,
that
he appoints governors he trusts. Yeah, he's doing a good job, honestly.
Despite everything.
Pretty good. One last point, which is debatable, is that he does appoint his son as successor.
Oh yeah, that was a whole thing.
Now, do we want to see this as he's doing a good job making sure there's a clear succession to the caliphate and that we don't fall into another civil war? Or do we want to say he is making things messy and risky by adding this innovation at the end of his caliphate?
It's a bit of both. Like, I'm glad he appointed somebody, but he did appoint his son, which is like not a thing that we were doing. And it's very clear why he's doing that. So, he's not going to fool me. We know. We know what he's doing.
We know what he's doing. Yeah, exactly. We see him. Yeah, so how would you rate this? I think that, again, absolutely above a 5 because I think the caliphate is better off with him. He picks up a caliphate that is being riven by civil war, partially because of him as well. Fine.
Yeah.
But he does sort of consolidate it and make sure that there's a new setup. There's this new structure which can survive.
Fair.
So I think, again, this is a theme with him, but I'm going with like a 7 or 8. That's my
Yeah, I mean, we even
experience of
added
him.
like new territory to the empire, and things are going
it's
well.
not massive
and
territories, to be
he's
fair,
doing a good job. He's doing a good job. So whatever. He's a bureaucrat after all.
Yeah, exactly. And he has my boy Sarjun ibn Mansur
Yeah,
as
exactly.
his secretary, which is great.
Sure.
Also, Sarjun has several cameos in the TV show. I was so
He's
happy
got
about
it,
that.
yeah.
I was cheering every
Famous.
time I saw this one secretary that nobody cared about. I was like, oh yeah, it's my boy.
It's
Look at
him, it's
He's
him.
so beautiful.
There he is. Love that.
So I feel like
I like the 7.
like a 7.
It sounds
go
fine.
For an 8
you know?
then.
Oh, damn! You're going higher. Okay.
I really like
Okay.
him.
Yeah.
I think he's doing a really good job.
You are right.
He's
Though.
just such a competent administrator.
You are right.
It's just like,
But he's also sowing some seeds of chaos for the future.
oh, absolutely, we'll find out.
Yeah, I can see.
When somebody gets to reap the whirlwind, but still.
Mm.
So are you sticking with 7 or 8?
7.
Okay, very
I
well.
do not trust.
So with an 8 and a 7, he gets a 15 out of 20 for Aaron Shine. Our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like? And Al-Tabari telling us that Muawiyah wore his black turban and lined his eyelids with coal and was the most handsome person when he did that.
Ooh. Someone liked the makeup.
Exactly. Somebody enjoyed the makeup. So
it
good.
was like,
I mean, he's
ooh.
apparently, again, he enjoyed fancy clothes
Yeah.
and makeup and perfumes and food. So, he's a fancy lad. So now we can see Serial drawing him.
Yeah, do we have any more description?
That is all the description we have.
Great. So black turban.
Okay, so Serial has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and I'll describe it to you all. Oh, I love this. That's nice. Really good. So what we have here is a dark charcoal-y style portrait of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, where, he's on a dark background. As we were told by Al-Tabari, he has this dark turban, and he is there. He looks quite jolly.
Yeah, in a
He
way.
looks quite...
I can't believe that he ended up looking this jolly, but I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I do not have the time right now.
looks like he's having a nice... He looks
But, like,
he's
he is-
enjoyed,
yeah.
what's going on.
He enjoys
Honestly,
the nice
he's
things
fine.
in life, so I guess.
He apparently likes jokes, so why not? So you can see his very nice, expressive eyes just looking out in the middle distance. And he has this nice, reasonably well kept, but still bushy beard. There, a nice, powerful nose, and he is just looking seraphically at the world he has created because he can. So why not? He's done a great job.
I guess,
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. That's brilliant. If anybody would like to see this gorgeous portrait, you can go to our website on Sarah's Portrait Gallery, follow the link in the description of the episode, or go to our Discord if you're a patron. And now let me show Sarah what he actually looked like. Well, we have two images. Sort of. We have two images. We have one image, which is a coin.
Right.
And one image, which is from a later manuscript from the 1400s. So it's definitely
Is the
not
coin the
contemporary.
Sassanid
Interesting.
coin?
Correct. Tell me if you can tell any differences from the Sassanid coin. This is a coin of Muawiyah.
Oh, yeah, this is exactly what the Sassanids were doing. It still has the cool
this is
crown.
literally a Khosrow the second
Yeah.
coin.
Like, it literally... Yeah, they just took last king and basically kept it. So it has gone from symbolizing, like, whoever is currently in power to be like, this is the money symbol. I guess. Like, this is just...
This is the heads on the coin.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Yep.
The end.
Yeah, it's one of the... Like, I mean, we've seen this in previous episodes, but it's one of the more, like, stylized portraits of a profile with the crown and some writing on the sides. Yeah.
And this down here is from a manuscript from 1425, where Muawiyah is the guy here dressed in red.
I see. Cool. I like the mustache and beard. I should go for that style for my next, like, for the portraits.
Quite good.
Very pretty. I love the colors. Very beautiful art, actually. 1425. What year are we in right now?
We are in 680.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this, considering that there is a non-contemporary view?
I mean, this is a pretty piece of art, but again, it's not of the time, so it can just be whatever, I guess. Like, it's someone's interpretation, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And the coins are, like, unrelated. Like, very funny that this is during
not him.
This period, but clearly, as a portrait, doesn't give us much.
Yeah, bit of a different thing. But yeah, so how would you rate this out of 10?
It's a pretty piece of art. I love the geometric patterns that adorning the background. I love the, like, lack of perspective in this sort of art in this period, where, like, the floor and the walls just seem to be just flat, and then you have all the subjects on the drawing just standing there. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I genuinely, unironically love when art of this time does that. It has red hues and blues and, like, a very deep blue and some purples and greens and yellows. It's very pretty, but also not contemporary, so it could I guess it'll go for like a 4.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go for 3 because I feel like I'm not terribly impressed. Also, it's not contemporary, but fair enough. I see where we. So with a 3 and a 4, he gets a 1.8 out of 5 for Face of Faces. Our next category is lengthiness. How long do you think this man reigned? Basically, from the time Ali is murdered to the time he dies of natural causes.
Well, he died around his 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say maybe this was a period of relative, like, calm for once. But I'm not super optimistic about it, because he must have been, like, appointed caliph relatively old.
Mm-hmm.
I will say between 20 and 15 years.
That's basically it. Yeah, he reigned
I'll say
for
17.
A total of 19 years.
I was like, I'll go in the middle, just to,
So yeah, he reigned from 661 to 680.
All right.
Giving him a total of 19 years, the longest reign we've seen since Khosrow II, which is pretty good. Which, divided by 10, that gives him a 1.9 out of 5 for lengthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to the final score, which is a grand total of 61.7 out of 100, making him the caliph with the highest amount of points that we've had so far, and just above Mithridates II, and a bit below Ardashir I, the founder of the Sassanid Empire. So he's doing quite well for himself. But that leads us to the final question, Sarah, which is to ask, is he schemy enough? Is he manipulative enough? Is he jolly enough to be a Shahanshah, or is he just a Shahanah? I like him.
He's the drama.
He is the drama. I like him for that. I think he's very dramatic. I would gently push towards a Shahanshah, unless you have reservations.
I'm not super convinced.
You're not convinced? I'd say that he's just dramatic enough. Like, all the little stratagems, the little games he plays. I feel like he's so important in just making the caliphate what it is, that I feel like it's worth making.
Well, you also
Shahanshah.
have, like, future vision, which I don't have.
True, I also have future vision.
So,
Correct.
hmm.
Mostly, I think that he's so integral to the whole story of the early caliphate that I think these three people need to be together.
I was gonna
like Uthman, Ali, and Muawiyah
I
need
guess
to be
the
combined.
three beginning people, like, it makes sense that they would be very important.
Mm-hmm. It'll be the first time we get a trio of Shahanshahs, to be fair, in a row.
Yeah, but there's still...
Although the late Sassanids were
Because
very
I was
close.
like, well, what would make us stop? But this feels still very momentous.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like we've had, like, all of the episodes of this season so far have been, like, intense. So I'm like, well, at some point we have to stop,
bit,
you know? Yeah, like,
so, yeah.
I love me an intense episode, but also I'm like, you know. All right, then let's give it the Shahanshah, just if anything to make you happy.
Brilliant, thank you.
I don't know if I would have on my own, but you do have a point. So
congratulations, Muawiyah. You are a Shahanshah. You can go off into the Paradise Gardens and meet Ali and Uthman and discuss with them what happened with the whole caliphate thing. But yeah, so thank you all for listening. We hope you had a lovely time with Muawiyah, and we hope you'll join us next time with Yazid I to figure out how he's doing, how he's going to do.
Interesting.
In the meantime, if you'd like to support us, there are many ways to do so. Well, first of all, we have a merch store with a bunch of Serial's brilliant art on it. So if you'd like t-shirts, mugs, posters, they're there.
Cool.
Then we have a Patreon where we have just recently selected the new miniseries that's going to be run, which is The Foundations of Islam. So the episode on Abu Bakr should have just released last week. An episode on Umar is coming up at the end of February. And an episode on Marwan I should release at the end of March. So you can look forward to all of that and see how it turns out
and
for
for
you.
us.
Plus, of course, there's a bunch of backup episodes, which are brilliant. If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, there's many other ways to do so. You could give us a review on your podcast app of choice to tell people that you enjoy us and like us. And just tell people in general on social media, tell your friends, tell everyone that, hey, we're back for a second season and it's good and it's great. So hopefully you will enjoy all that and we can sort of spread the word that we've returned at last. And in that case, without any further ado, we hope you have a lovely week and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hello everybody, this is Umberto, and I'm here to tell you about a very exciting project, which is Intelligent Speech 2026, where on the 28th of February 2026, you will be able to join a bunch of different podcasters for a series of presentations on the topic of companions and rivals. So we are going to be there with our own presentation. But then you can look forward to such exclusive keynote speakers as the Alternate Historian, Totalis Rankium, and History of Persia. So if you would like to attend this great event, we've had it several years before. It's really fun activity. There's also a bit at the end of it where you can just chat with us, which is always good fun. If you would like any tickets, you can go to intelligentspeechonline.com/tickets, and if you use our promo code RULE, RULE, you'll be able to get a 10% discount off the general price, and people will know that we sent you over, so that's great. So that once more, intelligentspeechonline.com/tickets, use the promo code RULE.